Okay, our meeting is now live streaming, so whenever you'd like to call the meeting to order, where do you go?
Good morning, everybody. It's 9:02. We can call the meeting to order. Paul, if you can do the roll call, please.
Great, so we'll do a roll call in the same order of the agenda. When I call your name, please confirm your attendance. So Matthew Rednick.
Here.
Paul Gerard sitting in for Matt Zabo. Hetty Santos sitting in for Holly Walcott. Shauna Janeway sitting in for Janita Gualier.
Here.
Marlene Fonseca.
Here.
Esteban Lizardo.
Here.
6 members present. It's a quorum.
Thank you so much. Do we have any public comments?
For those who are attending via phone or virtually, if you can press *9 on your phone to put yourself into the speaker queue. For anybody who wants to make a public comment in person, please bring your speaker card to the front. Seeing no one in the queue and seeing no one in the room.
Thank you. We can move on to committee report 2431 on the request for proposal of the cancellation of the event.
So I will start us off with this report. As the JLMBC remembers, we did come back in May with a recommendation to move forward with selection of 3 different vendors. In January, we had brought an RFP, a joint RFP. It was one posting, but 3 different individual components. So we had one RFP for life insurance services, one RFP for accidental death and dismemberment services, and one RFP for disability services. Vendors were required to submit separate proposals. So they had, if they wanted to submit on all 3 proposals, they still had to submit 3 separate RFP responses. They were scored individually. They were awarded individually by the JLMBC in May. After May, we started negotiations with MetLife. MetLife was the selected provider for each of the services. We started negotiations with MetLife for all 3 services. We are able to move forward with negotiations on both the life insurance and the accidental death and dismemberment insurance. But disability insurance, we did hit a pause. In July, we found out from MetLife that they did not think they could file their plan in the same way that Standard Insurance has filed their insurance plan. I don't think we've talked a lot about regulation in this committee, but insurance all across the board is heavily regulated. And so for the insurance vendor for disability insurance or life insurance, they do have to file with the Department of Insurance how they're going to operate that plan. So the Standard Insurance filing includes an ability for the Standard Insurance to offset any service retirement income that a participant receives. So in concept or an actual reality, if somebody had a disability insurance benefit and they started to receive actual service retirement, Standard is going to reduce the amount of payment that they make towards that disability payment by the amount of pension that the individual receives while they're still defined as qualifying for disability. So they still receive their payment from the disability insurance, but they also receive their payment from pension. MetLife said that they would not be able to have that same filing. They thought it would be denied, that the offset would not be able to be applied. They attempted to file with the Department of Insurance, and they have not gotten a response back. Their position has been if they could not get that filing to meet the same provisions that the plan was being administered under, the costs that they're anticipating would dramatically increase from what they proposed, and they would need to raise or increase the rates of what they submitted to us. We did not find that acceptable. They did not have another option to put forward. We are out of time because we do have to put things forward for programming for open enrollment. Open enrollment starts in October, but we program now and in August, and we spend the entire month of September testing it to make sure things are right before we put things out. So we are really running up against the wire. We don't have additional time to wait to find out whether or not MetLife is going to get a yes or a no. So we made a decision, which is what we're bringing forward to the committee, to cancel just the disability portion of the RFP, or just the disability RFP of the joint RFP procurement. And to still move forward with the other 2 procurements, the life insurance services and the AD&D services. In canceling the disability RFP, we would be wanting to extend services with the current incumbent provider, which is Standard Insurance Company. We're recommending to extend for 1 year, 1 plan year. That would need to go to council because we do not have authority to execute it on our own. We've already exceeded our authority with Standard Insurance. They're actually on year, I think, 8. So this would be year 9 or something like that. But we'd still have to go to council no matter what for that approval. When the JLMBC met in June to adopt the program for 2025, you also confirmed MetLife as the carrier for insurance, but you took separate actions to make plan design choices. One of those separate actions was to increase the basic disability benefit from the current amount of $3,600 and some change each month to $5,000. That is a standard design change that the JLMBC adopts every year as a cost of living increase. The other design change that you adopted was for the benefit waiting period for a disability insurance claim, for it to start or be adjusted on that benefit waiting period for benefits to start when somebody on workers' comp begins state rate. That extends essentially the amount of time that they can still receive a disability benefit. In talking preliminarily with Standard is in agreement to accept both of those design changes without further changes to the overall contract. And we identified that that is something we can move forward to. It's not going to be conflicting with what they bid versus what we're doing. Just for clarity, in canceling the RFP, we cannot accept what Standard bid as their bid. So everything else that was included in the proposal is not able to move forward in canceling the full RFP. I know I kind of jumbled that all together. But that's the main gist of where we're here today, to take an action before we finalize everything with open enrollment and move forward with printing and producing documents, identifying our carrier and our rates. If the JLMBC agrees with this provision of canceling the disability RFP and extending the services with standard insurance for 1 calendar year, we would continue the same rates moving forward for 2025, move that contract forward to council, and continue with programming in our system. Any questions so far?
Can you repeat the last portion, specifically about we don't accept what Standard did?
Oh, sorry. So I can explain it a little bit better. So we had 9 different bidders for, we had 8 different bidders for disability because one bidder chose not to bid for disability. In a normal process, if we identified that we were unsuccessful in negotiations with the bidder, we would go to the next qualified bidder, the next rated one. That was not Standard. We had a different company in position number 2 for disability services. By canceling the RFP, we are canceling all of, and we don't have time to go to any other bidders and start negotiations all over. We're just completely out of time. In canceling the RFP, we're canceling any proposal that was put forward. So new rates that were put forward by Standard in their proposal, other conditions that are put forward in Standard's proposal, we are not able to move that forward. We're saying the full RFP is canceled. But we are able to move forward those program changes that the JLMBC adopted independently.
So you're extending and amending the contract.
Correct.
And amending it with just the 2 items.
Correct.
And is the methodology that is used today, the offset of the state rate, is that something that's useful?
Maybe Keenan can speak to that better than me. But we had a lot of conversations in that. It is not, from what I think I understood, and Keenan, if you wanted to jump in and explain, it is not uncommon for government.
And I'm just trying to ascertain the hang up. I mean, Standard is a super awesome company, they can handle this, and no one else can, or is it that MetLife just can't? Why can't they accommodate it? I don't get that, but just trying to keep them.
If I understand it, because for whatever reason, the selected, the bidder who's going out there wasn't able to complete anything in the fashion, maybe it has to do with this thing. And if this had come up at a more timely fashion, then staff would have been able to go to the second bidder, and they would have time to bid it. So it isn't so much that Standard is better than anybody. It's that they appear to be the only option we have available, given the time frame we have, because October is coming up very, very quickly. So that's it. So I don't think it's a one is better, one is worse. I think unless we decide to go to a second bidder and miss the deadline for open enrollment in terms of timing, Standard is really the only one we could, because they're the ones that actually engage in this amendment.
Yeah, my question was more just out of curiosity about what the hangup was. Because
Yeah.
If this offset in state rate is fairly typical, I'm just curious as to why MetLife said, oh, that was new to us. I mean, are we gonna run into this problem again? Is basically the question I'm asking. Is standard can do it? Is it, I mean, are we gonna hit this, when we go out and just down the line curiosity?
Understood. And I think Megan is ready to respond on that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it's not offsetting for the IOD or state rate. The issue is the offsetting of the service retirement. Disability retirement is not an issue. It's the actual service retirement. Standard is operating under a state approved contract and filing to administer this plan exactly as the city has it set up. So your plan is compliant. It's filed with the state. DOI has signed off on it. There is an overlying complexity for MetLife related to it's a settlement agreement and a legal opinion on something that happened back in 2006. And they've been having conversations surrounding that with the state for quite some time. They've been talking with the legislators up there, and the way they have put forth the filing was as a writer for the plan. It's still up in the air as to whether or not it's even going to be approved or not. Because of this settlement, there's like an overlying complexity to that portion. And so it could take months. They said sometimes up to a year to work through that. And the issue really is the city doesn't have that amount of time. They talked about a number of different options that I do not think at this juncture are viable given the very compressed time frame that Paul and his team are working under.
Thank you. Yeah, the question will explain by us. I was just curious to know the implications on for future stuff.
That does touch on a component that we're just focused in this recommendation, and everything we're talking about is really focused on 2025. We have not thought past that. So we're just trying to figure out how to move forward now, and then we can there's definitely more discussions that we'll need to have for 2026 and beyond.
I heard Paul say something, but I think I didn't catch you there. So, and I don't remember what enhancements, if any, we talked about for disability. But did you say that standard would incorporate those enhancements, or it's going to be as is?
So those two specific ones that we called out separate as a plan design change in the action that the JLMBC adopted in June, yes, are able to be accepted by standard and implemented. So the ability to extend or better word is to delay the payment of a disability benefit for those who are on workers' comp when they actually stop receiving a check. Standard is able to accept that. And standard is also accepting the ability to increase the basic level payout, which is a standard practice for this committee. Those two items we can move forward. No other enhancements would be able to move forward.
With a cost increase comparable to?
No cost increase. So we're talking about the same rates.
I know it doesn't matter. A lot of choices.
I'll have just a quick question, forgive the naivete perhaps on my part, but given you're in the position, the department's in the position of having to extend the current agreement. I imagine you gave consideration to this, but maybe it's just not really feasible, but it's not as if you can continue waiting for approval, or MetLife's waiting for approval and then award the next plan year and not have to go through a new RFP process, or because the RFP specified the 2025 plan year as the initiation of a new contract, you can't continue that process while extending 1 year? Because I imagine we were going to enter into a 3-year agreement to start or something like that. But
We did consult with legal about that and we were told that we couldn't. I would have preferred that definitely, to be able to continue this conversation while we do this, but exactly to your point, the way that we worded the award, the way that we worded, the whole process of it, we wouldn't able to, we couldn't pull it off.
Based on this experience, the board has to make changes to a new RFP to kind of get ahead of this issue.
I think we're always going to have this issue of timing. And so definitely what we should look towards doing is trying to get our RFP released earlier and awarded earlier in the year. But we should also look at some other changes.
Because like
It's a big,
fundamentally is an incumbent advantaged in a way timing wise because they've already gotten the plan for us approved through the
in this particular aspect, yes,
Mm.
right? There's no need for the incumbent to do additional filing. They don't do that yearly. It is not
but any new
specific.
provider would.
Right. Potentially. It depends on, it's more complicated than I can understand, but it depends on how they filed their plans. But most likely, yes.
And it sounds like from what everybody was saying that it's a particularly difficult thing for specifically for MetLife to do because Megan mentioned a previous legal settlement that's somehow complicating that filing that presumably does not apply to all the other bidders. So that's certainly a concern. I mean, to my lay ears, it sounds like they bid on a product that they could not actually provide to us. And so that, for me thinking again to the next year is certainly a concern. And how do we reiterate that in the RFP and how do we capture that so that we don't end up in a situation we don't end up in the same spot again. That's definitely concerning. And then it puts everything kind of at a weird offset. So we'll have that conversation. Were there any bundling concessions so that now that we have things split between carriers, is that an issue? Does that affect the pricing at all?
So fortunately, in our discussion moving forward, it is not, this change is not going to change our position. MetLife has agreed to honor the bundling discount, if I can say that correctly.
Yeah, they bundled life and AD&D and did not bundle disability with it. So in their proposal, so we should be good to go.
And then what if I could type a lot faster, but I didn't bring my laptop. Timing wise, let's just say, I mean, obviously it sounds like we're gonna approve the staff recommendation, but let's say that we do, and then tomorrow or next week, it comes through. What happens?
It's a no legal moment.
Yeah.
But actually, but we should correct that. We can't make the decision here, so we're making a recommendation that then we have to do. Once council approves, it doesn't matter what MetLife does, we're canceling the RFP. So everything about the RFP is gone, which is the thing that allows them to then go to our existing one and say, we're gonna extend the contract for you. But yeah, so at this point, it doesn't really make a legal difference, even if they got it next week. As long as we cancel it, there's no reason, we're just not going to vote. And it's unfortunate, but it does sound like they've got some other latent thing that they didn't necessarily disclose. By the way, we're going to submit a proposal. We've got this, fight that we've been having in the state in 2006, and that might back out.
And logistically, even if we wanted to try to reverse path in a week or so, logistically, we don't have time to. We need to have the system programmed really tomorrow.
Just as a reminder, do you remember since MetLife wasn't giving us choice, what are we by not being was actually happening. Like, how do we, what were the key factors of why we didn't achieve? And
Ruben, you might remember better than I can.
But we did.
Yeah.
I think it was more of the overall rates that were cited, I think those Americans. As well as the additional services that MetLife was able to provide, they had. The enhancements that they were gonna bring for the overall process for the members seemed much better, like they had like a user-friendly interface. So. That's what I can think of.
I do remember, we did focus also a lot on mental health, and denial rates. And I believe their responses in the proposal for both of those categories were quite high. Does that change as an enhancement? Not necessarily, if it's more user experience.
then is the plan to, since it's three part. Our
3 separate RPs, correct?
three separate, so the plan would be.
That's one option to go. We definitely need to kind of talk through what the better, or what all our options are going to be, and then decide on what the preferred one is.
How many extensions do you have left?
0. We extended already a number of times. I mean, technically, we just,
They don't have any more.
You don't have the authority.
yeah, we had extended them
Yeah, we don't have the authority.
when we extended a whole bunch of them because of the HRP project. And then I think we had another extension on top of that we went to council for. And so this is at least the second time that we're going to council for an extension beyond our authority.
We just asked them one year.
Yes.
So to Penny's point, would probably. I would imagine reading as opposed to going back. So. We need to get another extension.
We go, yeah, I mean, probably the preference would be to go back out to bid, to look for enhanced services as well. But we do have that option as well. We could consider extending again.
Recognizing that this is an unfortunate situation that we found ourselves in, so as far as I can tell, nothing on our part, but just had to do with the unique circumstances that I think the recommendation they.
Second.
Thank you. Please go ahead and do roll call vote.
Sure. We're gonna go in that same order of the agenda. Matt Reddick, your vote?
Aye.
Matt votes aye. Paul, your vote?
Aye.
Paul votes aye. Petty, your vote? Petty votes aye. Shauna, your vote?
Aye.
Shauna votes aye. Esteban, your vote?
Yeah.
Esteban votes aye. And Marlene, your vote? Marlene votes aye. It's unanimous. The motion passes.
All right, everything on our agenda. Do we have any requests for future agenda items? Okay, thank you. So we do not have a meeting in September. Our next will be October 3rd, and then after that, November 7th. And we're adjourned, 9:25.
Thanks for giving us. That's important.